Welcome to Mommy Mondays. This is a really, really special episode we have here. I have a super special guest, great friend of mine, Rodiah. She is the founder and the creator of the Spirit Diet. She's going to be talking about how she manifested this community, basically, and also her journey in motherhood, which I think it's one that's going to be relatable to a lot of mothers. And it's one that we haven't discussed on this platform. So I appreciate that you're willing to come on today to share this journey.
Yo, you're more than welcome. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me, boo.
So just you can step right in, tell everybody who you are, where you come from, and everything about the Spirit Diet, which I've always admired just your dedication to it because it's grown so much, and I loved watching it evolve the way it has.
Thank you, boo. So the Spirit Diet is hi, I'm Rodiah. And the Spirit Diet is a lifestyle health and wellness brand, and it's a personalized wellness brand. So I specialize in functional diagnostic testing and customizing cleanses and detoxes. But a lot for years when I started this, because I prayed for the name of my company and I prayed because when I graduated as a health coach in 2012, all the names I was coming up with were corny, like Rodiah Health Coaching, and then I just gave it to God, and I was like, I'll wait on the name. I want the perfect name, and I happened to be on the phone with my cousin, who's a stone cold hater. Like he's not even like I shouldn't say that. Cut. No, I'm joking. He he's not even like one of my. It's just interesting that it came through him, and then he was like, "Whatever happened to your blog, The Sexy Vegetarian?" And I was like, it's more than that. And people were thinking that I'm calling myself sexy. I just meant the vegetables were sexy. And then he said, oh, so it's like a spirit diet. And as soon as he said it, I knew that that was the name. And then I prayed God use me. So the last few years, and we started in 2014, evolving this, I was like building an ark. That's what I always say. Like I knew what I was doing, but I was like, why? It was so ahead of where people were at with it. So just to close, like a part of the Spirit Diet philosophy, which is important for me now that I'm getting back out there and promoting it, is that the word vegan was coined by a man named Donald Watson and him and his group of friends. And that was in, I think, 1946. And we live in a different world now, and vegan food isn't as healthy as it was. And you don't have to be a vegan, even though I don't advocate eating meat. And I think that that's the biggest part of, even though we have testing, everything that I would want people to take away from the company is that we have a philosophy, whereas you can make wellness a long-term lifetime way of living, as opposed to like these intervals of wellness that I see a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So what inspired you to want to create the Spirit Diet? Like what was your personal journey that, manifested into this?
I used to work, I used to rap and I used to work in the entertainment industry. I was nice as MC. And I started doing a public access show, the Rose Show in 2009. My cousin and I, she went to school for film and we would just do skits. And I don't know, the type of person I am, but I think it's also because I think one of the big ones was Mashonda, who I think had a baby with Swiss Beats. She used to follow me on Twitter and I didn't know her. And I remember one day I covered a story about something she had going on with Swiss. Swiss had followed me too. But I don't know them. And I just remember I didn't want to post a story. I ended up not posting it because I just didn't want to talk about her. I just thought it was wrong to talk about somebody I don't know. And I was like, I went to my cousin, I was like, this show has to mean more. And we wanted to pivot it into, which is ironic now that I'm telling you this, that the golly, that the initial plan was for this to be the wellness stuff to be like a part of a show. It's just interesting because I fight that so much now. But I got certified as a coach, and then I started working with celebrities, which was really cool. And you get all of that, but I just was like, I wanted to help regular people. I had seen like regular people like myself, I should say, not people who were afforded a level of affluence and could access people like myself, whatever. I wanted to help like the people that are in food deserts and things like that. So I was just like, I'm gonna do what I feel God is telling me to do, regardless of how it looks and how long it takes. And girl, it took at this point, like we've been doing it for a minute, but now I know. So the Spirit Diet is going to be wellness centers. Ultimately, we're pitching for funding, and they're immersive experiences that will change your life. One experience will change your life. So, if you would have told me that back in the day, I would have been like, "What?" So that's my inspiration, is to just help more people. And now I see how it's come, how God had a plan that was way bigger than me just being a health coach for some basketball people or some attorneys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When did you what made you become plant-based?
Ah man, so I never like, I swear, you are who you are when you get here. I think the minute I correlated that what we were eating, like I knew it was chicken, I knew there was an animal named chicken, but I think the minute as a child that I correlated we were eating the chicken that you also are in my storybooks, like what type of weird shit y'all want? You know what I mean? So I was just like very early on I told my mother I'm gonna be a vegetarian. And she was like, okay, vegetarian, eat your food. And then you can be a vegetarian after you finish your plate. And then I moved in with the guy I ended up marrying. We're separated now, but at 19. And I went to clean a bird for him, and I didn't see the bag of giblets. I don't know what it's called. I just knew I had to take it out to make the bird. I go to get the giblets out, and there's no giblets in there. So I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm about to make this little chicken for, Les, and I don't see that bag of the parts. And she's like, well, stick your hand up in there and feel around. And if you feel them, pull them out. And I was like, oof, absolutely not. I absolutely, and I just put the bird in a bowl. I put a paper towel over the bowl. I left that animal carcass for his mother because I was living in his house. And I stopped eating meat, like cold turkey, like, because I had never really liked it. Fish and cheese and all those things were like later on, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, but that turkey
But
was,
the
I'm
meat
done.
was
So it was
the
just, huh?
the meat was like the first thing, cold turkey gone.
Yeah, it was just the idea of eating. My uncle Bilbo had a farm in Mississippi. And I just remember we went down there, they had these gigantic bottles. We fed, it's the mom show. We were feeding these little calves. And then they came and took them to slaughter. And I was like, what kind of fucked up vacation we on? Like, what kind of messed up family vacation where you have me meet all these majestic animals and then a truck comes and gets them to kill them for food? And I was like, I'm not doing this. First chance I get, I'm not doing it. And so it was just like I checked out. It's first chance I got.
How did like your friends or your family, because like when you started, it wasn't really like out there like that. Like I knew a few people who didn't eat meat, but it wasn't as common as now.
Man, I'm from Queens, New York, so you're gonna die. You're gonna die. You don't know what you eat, what you missing. You eat bird food, you eat rabbit food. Even my father would be like, I made you some deer chili. And I'd be like, where'd you get deer? Number one, where'd you get deer? Like, and then number two, I don't eat meat. Why would you think that like deer chili is the thing that I need to have? He do it all the time. He'd be like, oh, but this is turkey bacon. I'm like, but I don't eat meat. You know what I mean?
Like at
So
all.
at all. Like, and then especially like deer. Like he went and found like an extra majestic animal the body from my plate. Like, why'd you even kill the deer? But I think once I realized that like I people were kind of parroting what they heard other people say, and there was a lot of messaging in like in television shows and marketing and in that kind of was anti-health and wellness, like being healthy always was a joke. And I just was like, let me look this up because nobody else had. So I had just stopped eating meat because I like animals. But then when people had jokes, I just was like, I'm like a know-it-all Aquarius. I was like, oh, I'm gonna read about it, and then I have really good comprehension. I'm gonna comprehend it better than you, and then I'm gonna come back, and everybody gonna stop talking to me crazy. You can talk to me nice, and that's what happened.
That's exactly
So
how it went down.
you started getting like books and stuff.
Anything. I'm an avid reader. Anything. So I just start. I think a part of what I don't know how other people's brain works, but I would say like my brain is my most valued asset, and it's the way it works. Like sometimes I marvel at it. So it wasn't just like the book as much as it was I had certain questions about how certain things were happening or certain things, whatever. So it went, because I wasn't trying to be like a vegan. That's why when people use the term vegan or they ask me, which people haven't asked me for years, but recently, because I haven't shown up in my community where I live as this wellness people. I got there, I was sad, I was separated. I didn't want people asking me about their wellness. I'm trying to figure mine out. You know what I mean? Like, and so they don't know me as that. And it's interesting because once they were able to once they realized I didn't eat meat, the first question is like, so are you a vegetarian? Are you a vegan? And it's just like, that is such a 1998 question to me. How dare you even talk to me? Like, don't talk to me. But then I gotta remember, I'm like a health person, whatever, and I gotta give them like but in my head, I'm like, don't talk to me. Like, what are we talking about? Am I a vegetarian or vegan? In 1998, I don't know, dog. Like, but yeah, so people they ask crazy questions. They said things that weren't rooted in fact, and I just started reading mostly books. There weren't really like websites of people to follow. I didn't have like anybody I followed, or it wasn't one particular book because I had already kind of did want to eat the meat. I really went to the books because I'm like, I'm gonna get smarter than all y'all. Y'all not crazy. Ego shit.
You're gonna know why I do this.
And it helped me realize why. And then when I was 27, Oprah was talking about her thyroid. So now I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole of how things they put out in like television programming will manifest in the lives of the people because she started talking about thyroid, and all of a sudden I had a thyroid problem, and I promise you, Oprah gave it to me through the airwaves. But
I believe it.
no, for real, I went to the doctor. I was like, yo, test my thyroid. And it was like, oh, you got it. I was like, what are the chances, right? Like, but when they told me I had to take a pill every day for the rest of my life, and they couldn't tell me how I got it, why I didn't have it my whole life, they were just kind of like, oh, it's one of those things. I started looking into it, and then that's when I started realizing, like, my dental work, there's heavy metal toxicity associated with your dental work, or other things that made the body toxic. And it is just more than food. You know what I mean? It's more than the food you eat, which is why the tagline for the Spirit Diet is "You are what you consume, not just what you eat," because consumption like includes a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Tanisha, you have questions?
What was that?
I said, you have any questions?
Yes. So how many people in your family have you affected now? Because it's been many years. Like, how many have actually heard you and like want to know more about your lifestyle?
Ironically, I would say my dad, Brooklyn Ron, he has dementia right now, but he got that from the jab. I might have to answer that, but that's neither here nor there. But my dad's the one who started. He was the healthy one. He was juicing, blending when we were little, and I didn't think he was crazy. I knew that, I trusted my father. He was a man's man, so his authority made me trust what he was doing was right. But I had never seen anybody else. Like, he would go get this big thing of apples from the grocery store, like the bruised ones, and he would juice those. He was eating bee pollen. He ran track, and no one else's parent did that. So I didn't think he was weird. But when he would be like, or not forcing us, he was like, "Come eat your bee pollen." I just be like, "Why are you making me eat like bee doodle? Like, what is going on with you, sir?" Like, but like so I would accredit my dad to being the reason that I even had that inclination. But ironically, he didn't later on benefit from where I took it. And but he never really ate bad. He wasn't big junk food, fast food, anything like that. But he just never, I couldn't impart the information. And the same thing with my mom. It's just, you're not going to get through to her. She will actually, you try to help, she's going to do whatever the total opposite. Is this a mom show? Whatever the total opposite that's most beneficial, my mom's going to do that. And then, but God bless her. And, but my sister became a vegan chef. So she's been, we call it plant empowered for the last 8 years. My sister had a vegan pregnancy, so my niece has never had meat. There's my ex-husband doesn't eat meat. My brother is like, we'll have some things here and there, but he's mostly, so what I tell people who eat like meat, it's like if you had 15 other super high vibration habits, you're taking your herbs, you're taking lion's mane for your brain, you're doing a cleanse every time the seasons change. Like my husband does that, 4 times a year, he's doing a 10-day cleanse. When you have other wellness practices, if you still eat whatever, I don't know what people eat, hot lemon, honey chicken wings, whatever it's called, lemon pepper chicken wings, then eat your lemon pepper chicken wings. I mean,
Right.
I feel sad for the chicken, but people, I think nowadays it's just like you can download somebody's PDF or you could whatever, and then you do that for 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and then you're secretly still craving chicken wings. So now you're in a weird space where you want to be this vegan person, and so I just watch the people transition around me, but everybody's not like a stone cold vegan, meaning I don't wear leather personally, but like my brother will wear leather. Do you know what I mean? So everybody found their own balance, but I would say pretty much everybody around me, nail techs, people who braid my hair, a lot of people in my family, my cousins, kids, her husband, a lot of people, a lot of my cousins now that I think about it. But unfortunately, not my parents. Yeah.
It'd be
It's,
like
it's
that
always
though.
like that, right? It
Hmm.
be the main people that you like out of everybody. Can just y'all at least, like my dad be on it, my mom just she ain't even there. But yeah, we've even had that experience with my husband's mom, like we be trying and it's like they don't want to hear it. Like they
Separate. Mm-mm.
hear it. And then after a while, it's hard because you kind of just not that you give up, but you be like, you know what? I can't save everybody, man. I tried.
Be your own guru. That's why I made that. I realized you can't help everybody. You
Can't
gotta help you really aren't ever helping anybody. You're more just helping yourself. And through helping yourself, other people will be inspired, they'll be changed, whatever. As long as you handling this main journey, that's where, but you're not saving nobody. Spirit is working in them.
yeah.
And now you can inspire, you can come over physically assist. I can lift you out the street if you fall down. But if you out there falling down because you drunk, I can't get into here to make you stop being a drunkard. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
So tell us about your journey in motherhood and just kind of all around like how it shaped you as a person. I think everything we go through takes us into another level of ourselves once we've passed the beginning stages of certain things that we have to go through in the physical. um and how did it affect your how did motherhood affect your marriage and your relationship with the people around you, that as far as in the people you were close to?
Man, I'm so glad. First, let me just say I'm grateful because I wanted to talk. I knew when this happened just because I know how life works. So I was like, you're going to end up talking about this one day. Because I sought overstanding rather. I sought perspective. I just didn't. I had met this lady one time who had mentioned having a daughter, but I knew her son and I didn't know him to have any sisters. So I got confused for a second. And then she was like, oh, she passed away. And I just was real insensitive. I didn't understand. I wasn't a woman who had wanted kids. I wasn't a woman who necessarily even liked kids. You know what I'm saying? I never said that I didn't want kids because I think the idea of having like a little person that you can train or talk to, and like even my niece, like a little person that I could just say like, don't do that, and here's the reasons why. And then when she's actually listening, you realize that no one told me that and what could become of that. That the idea of making like a better human because of the things that I had self-developed were in, whatever. But I just was, so the frustrating thing was for years, I think, because I married my husband. We met at 11. We were best friends from 11 to 19. Um, we started dating at 19. He asked me to marry him at 19, again at 21. I said yes every time. He just would upgrade the ring. And then again at 26, I got married at 27. So I'm 44. I've known my husband, 32, 33 years, something like that, 32 years. And we were together 20 something years. And I was happily married. And from a spiritual perspective, if I looked at this from a spiritual, now I'm going to have to be as honest. I mean, I'm always honest, but I'm going to be honest and transparent. And some of it, so I don't know if I have to issue a trigger warning because sometimes people, the truth just makes people shift, right? I wasn't a person who was happy to be pregnant. Now, it wasn't because I didn't think it's a blessing. I had never thought about it because I never really wanted to have kids. So it was more of something that popped up on my timeline that was unplanned for, and it wasn't my plan. And my words are powerful, and the things I would say to my cousin and the comments I would make. Now, on to some degree, I will say I do have a level of prophecy, like a gift of prophecy, and I did not think I just didn't see I didn't see myself with a kid. Um, and I called this psychic, which I probably wouldn't have done now just based on my faith. But at the time, I just needed somebody to confirm what I felt because I didn't want to say it to anybody else because I felt guilty even thinking it.
Yeah,
And I waited, huh?
I said it must
And
be
I
very
waited,
difficult.
yeah, and I waited. So like because I had voiced to my husband like that I didn't want to. I wasn't really happy, but I wasn't that I didn't want to be obviously pregnant with his kid. It just seemed like a lot. If I had to peel it back now for anybody who may feel like that might hear this, it stems from my relationship with my mom, and it stems from like, if you grow up and you hear you can't have shit with kids, and I'm the kid you're talking about. A, that's going to impact our relationship, and then B, you're going to make me not want to have kids because you've told me my whole life that if I want anything, I can't have shit if the kids are around. So I think that that's why kids were never on my thing. Also, I love my mother, but throughout my life, there have been ways that I've felt about her that I just didn't want another person. I didn't want to give birth to a person that would feel about that way about me one day. And I didn't know if I could be the level, I guess, of perfect that would make, because I look at how my husband's mother treats her sons. I don't have that kind of mom. And so the thing is, you only really know what you got until you realize that other people, like when I was going through my divorce and I had friends like, oh, I had my family. My dad was there for me. And I'm like, my parents are on the phone, like, I told you shouldn't have, da, da, da. And I'm like, my whole heart is, whatever. So I didn't have the support. So I was nervous. I got pregnant literally the whole time. I stopped taking birth control in my 20s because I found out what it did to you hormonally. So I just used the rhythm method and I just avoided having sex during ovulation. And then one day I just happened to check the calendar and I literally walked in the bathroom. I was like, I'm pregnant. And he thought I was crazy. We waited for a while, I took the test, I ended up being pregnant, but there wasn't a level of, we never got excited. And that's probably why I left, I separated, but that's probably because I think as a woman, if you heal, or even if it's the man healing and one person's still hurt, you're going to look at that person like they didn't care. And I thought that we had escaped that, but I was able to heal because I didn't want to carry the sadness like the woman at the top of the story. Because the baby had been lost so long ago. I just knew enough to know that yes, it could be a sad thing, but you don't have to wear it like that. And I'm not gonna let anything that life deals me hit me so hard that I wear it forever. Unless I wear it in the sense of it empowered me, it made me better, but not some downtrodden shit. You know what I mean? So anyway, long story short, perfectly healthy pregnancy. Just stressed. I called my mother. I told her I was I didn't want to, like, I was scared. That's what I said. I'm scared. And she was like, oh, Rodiah, give me a break. Like, it was like it was like no kind of this. So that I didn't have the support system. I could have, but by the time I called my mother-in-law, because she's just like, my husband's family's like perfect. I think it was already the trajectory from the free will choices and the spoken word and all of the human thing, regardless of what God was sending through, had interrupted and it was more like, if I had to say spiritually, it was more of gratitude is a real thing. And there are women who just look for relationship. I had relationship and then I got pregnant and I was ungrateful. Do I think my fears of being a mom and all of that were valid? Yeah. And do I think that there's not space for women who have those fears because everybody's telling you it's a blessing and it is? Yeah, because I was finding these dark corners of the web where there was some mother under an anonymous name admitting she didn't want to be pregnant. And I'm not saying that you carry that forever, but I think that initial fear or scared or what financial worry, whatever may hit a person, it will subside, but I do think like a support system is necessary. So I just dilated completely. I had an argument with a family member, and I let myself get too mad. I take personal onus. I wouldn't blame that person. I was just mad, you know, at people. I was mad in general. And I just remember I went around the corner after the argument. I put my feet up on the fireplace. I was sitting next to my homegirl, and the thought that entered my head were, you went too far. You got too mad. There's no way you can have life inside of you get that mad, and that doesn't impact that life. And I'm not saying
sorry, I just real quick. How
like
many?
I want to say almost 4 months. I want to say almost 4 because we weren't going to say anything to 3 months. So I gave birth. We weren't going to say anything to 3 months, and I just remember when I started telling people when I hit the 3-month mark, and it happened maybe like 2 weeks after that. So it was like almost 4 months.
Okay, continue.
So the next day after the argument, I called my husband. He was at work. I was like, I'm leaking fluid. We went to ER. We were on the way to the mall to return something. So we kind of were just stopping at the ER just to make sure I was good. And then the first person who looked was just kind of like, no, the first person that I saw was kind of like, oh, the baby's getting bigger. She's probably pressing on your bladder. You know, this is standard. But when the guy did the examination, he was like, you're completely dilated. I could literally see the sac. Yeah. And then all of this stuff started happening quicker than I could keep up. I actually ended up unplugging myself. They hoisted my bed up to the ceiling. All these people kept coming in. I don't really deal with male doctors either. So it was just a bunch of male energy coming in. My husband wasn't really, God bless him, but he wasn't really advocating in the way that, you know, my mother wasn't there. So eventually a nurse says to me, they're just like, lay on your back, here's some ice chips, you're going to be in here for a while. And this nurse comes up to me, she's like, did anybody explain to you what's going on? I was like, no. Wow. And then she explained, you dilated, you know, there's no fluid in the sac, like that's what the fluid you leaked. So I went home. Well, it was like limited fluid because I went home, I unplugged myself. I was like, I gotta go home and talk to God. I went home and did that. My sister-in-law, my ex-husband's a twin, and so she's married to his identical twin. She had lost twin babies when they had first got married, and I wasn't the nicest person during the time. But in my defense, like, and that because I don't want to paint myself as a mean person. I'm just one of those people who, if you're not speaking to me, you feel some fucked up way, and then you get sick. The Rodiah back then is like, I'm not your friend now because you're sick. You know what I mean? I know it sounds, you know what I mean? So it wasn't that I was being mean to her. We was already not talking. It's like, now I'm sorry for you, but I ain't like coming to the hospital. We not friends. You know what I mean? And that was, but then the Rodiah that was in that moment of not knowing what was going on, when they called my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and I was on the phone with her, I heard a voice and it said, like, apologize to her. And I said back to the voice, for what? And say, because the person you were back then isn't the person you are now, and you know better now. So you can't go back and change who you were back then, but you can make amends for that now that you know better and acknowledge that you know. And when I said I'm sorry, whatever, she burst into tears. We get up the phone. I get up to go tell my husband I apologize to her, and in the middle of me telling him he's at the sink washing dishes, my water breaks. Like, shh. And then I just knew, I was like, Dad, I'm going down. This is happening. You can't stop it. You caused it. And now you gotta go down this thing. And so I gave birth. I could have, they could have just laid me down there for whatever amount of time, but there was no fluid in the sac. You know what I mean? So we laid there for a while, but then after a while, they were like, you know, it makes sense to induce the labor and, you know, whatever.
So was your family out of the state, or were you guys all in the same state?
We were out of the state. They were out of the state. My husband and I were in California. My family's from New York. And this is, you know, what's interesting, because I've been watching a lot of stuff about Krishan Rock and this baby, and everybody's talking about this assumed support system based on the fact that she's a celebrity, or that she has the people who are my support system, the people who have held me up and showed up for me, are people that never appear on my Instagram. They're people that I would have never thought those would be the people that I call on when, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I just say that to say, because as I'm looking at her, when we talk about mental health and we talk about postpartum and we talk about all these things and we actually encounter someone on our phones, live on our phones, a celebrity or whomever, some person who gets in trouble in it or does something and ends up in the media, and there's no grace and there's no space for real mental health. There's no real grace and space for postpartum. There's no real grace and space for depression, or my sister just lost my niece's father. There's no real space for people to heal. Everybody got it on their tongue. It's on everybody's tongue. Oh, mate, hurt people, and mate, you never know what anyone's going through. So like treat everybody good. And then it's like giving the opportunity to give her the grace or to be like, hey, can we step in? Assuming she has somebody to go, look, you shouldn't take the baby to the studio. But if she doesn't know that, because everybody doesn't know things, assuming that she has the support system to say, hey, don't take the baby to the studio. I didn't have the support system. So they were all in New York, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I just don't have it.
What was how did your husband receive it, and like what happened after, because you come home, obviously there's a lot of emotions. Was there any like discussions you guys had? Like how was that process afterwards, if you don't mind talking about it?
Nah, you know what's crazy? I think so. I just remember I had this moment thinking like, not this is weird because I had a choice to be there. I probably am the person who chose to be. But a neighbor, my homegirl, who was my really good friend at the time, and our neighbor, my husband and I went out to eat. And it was a somber like thing. There were no discussions. But I think that what I've learned in the last few years is that a lot of people are tucking how they really feel. I don't really tuck how I feel or who I am or do any of that because there's nothing that I'm doing that anybody can check me on, or I mean God can spiritually, but like not another person. And there's nothing that I'm doing that I'm so ashamed about. But I think because people see the world as they are, when you see someone being transparent, if you're a person who's like, I gotta tuck everything about myself that I don't want the world to see, and then you see a person like me just saying it as it is and whatever, you interpret that the wrong way, almost like she's so hurt or she must be so messed up, because if she weren't so messed up, then I wouldn't know about it because I tuck my stuff. It's like, no, I'm not that messed up. I'm just not really trying to cover it for you because you can't really shame me on the shit that's really happening in my life type shit. You know what I mean? So it to me it was weird, but I when I think about it now, or rather you just posed the question, I thought about it. I think that because I had been vocal about not being happy. So let me just clarify too. After I spoke to my mother-in-law, I embraced it. But I think I had already spoke. You got to learn how you learn. I teach the power of words. How dare I? Unless that's what you really want to happen. You know what it is. That's what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. I literally teach that. You get what I'm saying? So, and that's what saved me because so I think my husband, I think he may have had his own worries and concerns and things going on that I can't speak to. I do think it might have been easier for him. I just think that I was like the strong one, but I think maybe the men have that brawn and stuff, so they could hide behind the brawn. But women, to me, have a different kind of strength, like a mental strength, a resilience. Because think about, not even to go too off the thing, but like if a man cheats on a woman, you're supposed to suck it up, stay, forgive him. Don't you love me? What about trust? All these other things, and let you even get a text message, a man's world, his thing will collapse.
Done. Yep.
Done. You can't handle it. So like women are raising the kids, dealing with divorce, dealing with separation, dealing with him not being there, dealing with him being with another bitch, dealing with him getting somebody else pregnant. So it's just like, I think my husband was more hurt than what he even knew how to cope with. And I think he might have, I don't think he consciously resented me, but I guess you would interpret it like she doesn't want to have my baby. But I also think that he wasn't really like, don't worry, Ro, we got this. Like he did, but he wasn't really like reassured. I didn't have anyone telling me it's gonna be okay. And for most of my life, I was the one telling everybody else it's gonna be okay. Here's why, here's the plan, here's how it works, here's the information here. And it was the one time I needed is 15 of y'all. No, y'all come put your heads together and figure out a solution for me to be okay. Like, you know. So I don't
I
know.
would like to say too that I think, and I speak from experience, that being someone that is really open and honest can also be interpreted as if you don't care as much. And I feel like that's a big thing when it's not spoken about, because then this person has this whole idea like, wow, this person can talk about it. This person can be honest about the feelings. And then this person can have a good laugh with someone else, or, and they can see your healing and then kind of hold resentment on it because they can't do all those things. And it's interpreted a totally opposite, because in reality, what's happening to you is that you're hurting so much that you're trying to open up and make the space for it to be spoken about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you there on the like how other people can interpret how you deal with your things, because I'm very talkative too. And once I let it out, that's it, I'm healed. I can
Girl.
see where I messed up. I can see where if I even want to go back, like I can see the whole thing play out, because I spoke about it. So I think it's important too to let other moms out there know that it's so important for you to share your genuine feelings, but it does need to be with someone that you trust, because that
Yeah.
energy does multiply. So if you're over here giving someone worry, and you're giving someone your concerns, and they're the type of person that already is, kind of like, she thinks she knows everything or whatever, they're going to multiply your worries and your concerns, as opposed to someone that you care about. They can make that space for you, and then you can walk away from things because they might offer even solutions for you. So it's a whole different dynamic.
It's crazy because I feel like for a while I was like that, and then like certain life situations that I went through kind of suppressed that, and then I stopped talking. Like it's like I literally stopped talking. So then like when these dark moments would come, I would shut down from everything and from everyone. And then now looking back at in my journey of healing now after motherhood, what I mean, going through what I went through in motherhood, it was that doing that is what caused my depression, my anxiety, and all this to multiply and to manifest into a bigger, like, I don't want to say demon, but just, you know what I mean? This heavy, heavy energy that would take a hold of me, and it felt like, a lot of things, what I did was whatever I went through in my childhood, it's like I thought that because I had already went through it, that I was over with it. So I didn't talk about it anymore.
Yes.
And not doing that is where I stopped the healing process, and then after going through postpartum and then kind of everything circling back, where I had to go back and face all things that I had suppressed. So when I suppressed all that in this period, when I became a mother and I started having these different emotions or different experiences that nobody ever talked about, I started to feel like I was crazy. So then I started to suppress it even more, and then, when we go back to mental health, most of the people in our community, they don't know how to receive a person that's in that state, and a lot of times, like even my husband, he was guilty of, not consciously or not in some ill manner, but kind of like, well, when are you going to get over it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes you more closing and just quiet because you're like, damn, I am bugging out. So how do I get out of this? And the truth was, it was after, you know, I had my whole spiritual experience with the magic mushrooms, and then I went into therapy afterwards, because for a while I was not ever trying to do therapy. I had a misconception of it because I watched my mom go to a psychiatrist all her life and get medicated. So I associated that, and I didn't realize the difference, you know? So because of that, I was like, I'm not going to no therapist, you know what I mean? Ain't nobody gonna medicate me, ain't nobody gonna do all that shit, you know? And then it was after I had my mushroom experience that kind of revealed so much that I was able to now be receptive of it and have a different understanding of it and be like, hold on, you know what I mean? I still have control of this. Nobody can control me in this. So once I got into therapy and I got back into what my source was, which is always being open about anything and not being ashamed of anything, because I know it's meant to evolve me in some way. Even if I don't know it at that moment, I'll figure it out later on. What was the purpose of it? So it was after I did that I feel like I really came back into my body, because I feel like I left my whole body. And then it's like, you have a husband who's just like, where did my wife go? And I'm like, I don't know, motherfucker. I'm trying to find her too. I don't fucking know. But all I know is I love these children, but they have triggered some stuff that I was not prepared for, that people didn't talk about. You know what I mean? It was more than postpartum. It was resurfaced trauma that I didn't know eyes were gonna trigger me. I didn't even know at times their laughter would trigger me. Like, I didn't know that. And it was like, I that's why I wrote the books that I wrote, because I just felt like I'm not trying to scare anybody in this motherhood journey. But I think that let's separate. Yes, it's a great experience. Yes, all this other stuff, you know, yeah, yes. We've heard that. But let's talk about the stuff we don't talk about. That's why mothers feel alone. That's why they talk about stuff. That's why they kind of like, it's like, not that they lose their friends, but friends don't even know how to be there for their mother friends. Like, I even, after I had kids, look back, because I was like the last one in my crew. Everybody started between 16 and 19. They had all their children. I'm here like at 33 having my first. So when I look back, I even went to them like, yo, my bad, I wasn't even there for you. Like, dude, you were doing that. This what I'm doing now that I'm losing my fucking mind. You was telling me you were doing this shit at 17? Like, oh my goodness. Like, and you had nobody. Like, one of them, her mom kicked her out. The other one had to go like a special school. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, I'm so sorry I wasn't even freaking there for y'all. You know, but it's because this experience that happens, if we allow it to teach us something about ourselves, and that's what I always remind myself, is that my kids are here to teach me something about me.
Right.
Like, they are a reflection of me.
Right.
So when something starts to happen that I don't like it's not dumb. I got to step back, look at myself, even the way I react. Why did I react that way? It has nothing to do with them. It's all going to go back to the childhood. It's going to go right back. So I just feel like I appreciate, you know, and I'm grateful that you're on a vibration where you're able to, and like we said, now people can receive this, to talk about these things, because it will always, for people who are not on that level of intelligence, they receive it as like certain things about, you know, postpartum, when it's so hard, is like that you don't love your child. Like, if I don't want to be around my child, no, I love my child, I love my children, but some days, like, I don't want to be around none of you motherfuckers. I don't want to be around nobody, because it's overstimulating.
Oh man, do you know who Titus is? Do you know
Huh?
who Titus? Do you know who Titus is? He has a
No.
YouTube little kid. He sings. He has this high pitched voice.
No.
Oh yes, I've seen
Amani,
him.
yo, you talk about overstimulation. My ears, and Titus will be playing, and then Monty will be talking. I love my niece, little cute voice. it makes me and I will go sit in the garage at my sister's house and be down there dolly for like 2 hours. And
Oh,
every time yeah, because I'm like, because the kid will be singing and his voice is so high pitched. Or some of what I noticed with some of the things my niece watches, the kids' voices are like, I don't know if that's because it keeps their attention, but I don't know, they just sound so high pitched. And it's like, yeah, pitter patter of little feet, but sometimes my niece be stomping. Like sometimes it stomps, it's not a pitter patter. Right? So I always think of my cousin because she has 5 children. You know what I'm saying? Like she grew up and she was one of 5, so it might be normal. But her, like me and my sister will sit here and we'd be like, because it's both of us and one Amani, and it's fun. But like even the other two was asking me just questions, and I'm just in there. I'm like, so we have a joke where there's a meme and the kid is talking, and then the mother's like, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit, right? So we would like kind of mumble it to each other, like, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. Like, but I'm in there, so my sister came in the room and she was like, she talks a lot, right? And I was like, yeah, but it's okay. But in my mind, I was like, there's a level of I don't have a kid, so I can always go home, and then B, there's a level of love that I have. But I told my sister the other day, I'm like, some people are really mean to kids.
yeah.
And people hurt kids and do things. And, I'm just like, even if it's whatever, I always think of why these people that can't handle, kind of like when we see again, Krishan, and I'm not knocking her, but with the baby, far back, yeah, I
Oh,
don't,
no.
I was just like, that's babies 101. I'm not like the most baby lady, but holding the head is like, I learned we held the head, you know what I mean? So, but again, it's because everybody's not equipped for that. So whenever I see a woman that has like more than one, because I watched my sister with one, there's another meme she sent me the other day, the lady's in the kitchen trying to cry. And then the kid, she's like crying, and there's like a sad song, and the kid comes in. She had to put. Did you see that?
Can I have a snack? Like, can you not see I'm having a breakdown?
They don't care. They don't. I have had meltdowns, and these children be like, "So, can I still have the?"
I guess
I'm like, just take it. Just take it. Just take it, please.
But I do want to say something. You said earlier was like people think you don't care, and I think that one of the other things that I've put a lot of concerted effort into self-development. And one of the things I really learned how to do, my aunt Cheryl taught me this. I mean, recently, when I called her up and I was running down everything my husband did, and my husband's a really good guy, and I'm just running down everything he did. And she's just like, you need to pay attention to your own walk and your own journey and your own salvation and all these things that you're worried about with him, you need to be focused on with you. And it took me a long time. So now when I tell the stories about losing Story or about separating from Leslie, and I tell those stories, I usually I tell my part and I talk about how I feel. And I don't say this person did this or this person wasn't there for me or this person should have did this. And the story can be told like that because there are places where I could point fingers, but they always be like, even if you do this, there's always one pointing back at yourself. And you don't grow unless you're able to look at yourself. But again, when you're transparent, vulnerability and transparency go hand in hand with leadership. But people don't see it like that until you're in that actual position. And then they appreciate your story of how you got there. But prior to you being kind of exalted into that position, you looked at somebody who doesn't have the emotional intelligence to tuck your feelings. And I always tell people all the time, you are not strong to me if your idea of strong is how well do I hide how I really feel from the people around me in the outside world. Now, I'm not saying everything belongs on social media, but I'm saying when you have real feelings and things that you can't even address in your mind. So for me, a very frustrating thing after losing Story was I had healed. And just to touch on that real quick is like my business partner, Kevin, I met him when I was like 23 and he used to manage so I used to rap and he managed another rapper. And one day he said something to me. We had pulled up, saw each other at the light, me and my sister, him and his artist, we pulled over to say hi. And he said something to me and I kind of gave him like like a snap, New York shit, like if I keep talking about or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, I already know or whatever. And then he said, Rodiah, you have knowledge and no wisdom. And I got home and it just kind of sat with me. I'm 23 years old and it just kept bothering me. So I Googled knowledge and I Googled wisdom and I realized he's saying that you know a lot of stuff. So he's acknowledging that you've acquired information past belief. Your root is rooted in education experience, but you're not applying that knowledge to your life. So you're not wise. And I was like, first of all, I'm not talking to you no more. How dare you look at me like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't write that, but in my mind, I was mad. And my way of getting back at him was I was gonna be wise. So you think you calling me? I'm about to be wise. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just interesting because after I lost Story, I tried to walk from my bedroom to my office, and they were across the hall. And I just laid down in the living room. Living room was in the middle, and I had never been that sad. And it was more of a feeling sorry for myself, sadness. Whereas it was why did this happen to me? I'm a good person. This is mad hard. How am I ever not going to think about this? All these things. And I just basically heard not Kevin's voice. And Kevin and I he wasn't my business partner yet. We had been friends on social media, like Facebook, MySpace. He was just one of the people that I knew from life, but he wasn't someone I spoke to. And I just kind of heard it, and not his voice, but it was the thing he had said to me. And then it said, do you have knowledge or do you have wisdom? And I'm laying on the floor crying. And then I didn't answer. And then it said, what did you read all those books for? What did you, all them times you were meditating, all that time you regurgitated everything you had learned to somebody else? Can you take that and apply it to your life? And Dr. Wayne Dyer was one of my earlier spiritual teachers, like not personally, but I listened to a lot of his stuff. And he used to be like, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I was like, I need a new perspective on death. And so it took me 4 weeks. And I'm not saying that I was timing it or proud that I was just curious, how long will it take me to shift my perspective to where I really felt healed? And so I went down this rabbit hole looking for like, when does the soul enter a body? I found out about stem cells and how stem cells will repair a mom, because stem cells have the ability to repair or mimic any cell. So stem cells, I think last time I checked the study, which was around that time, they had found stem cells, I think up to 20 years later. The son was like 20, the stem cells were still in the mom's body repairing her cells. And yeah, you should look into that. So I imagine, because a mom is so important and the babies have the stem cells, that it leaves a part of the stem cells behind, because the baby's going to need the mom. So if you're somebody who's healthy or lives well, and then you have 3 kids, you have 3 different DNA stem cell things that's still, when kids are still young, they're still in there healing and repairing you because your kids need you. Like, that was like a beautiful thing. Like, I got to go to yeah, I was just like, oh, so I found all of these perspectives about death. There was a woman on Oprah who had lost one of her twins, and which triggered just thoughts, because I know I have a cousin who lost his identical twin brother. My husband is a twin, and then my husband has a cousin who lost his identical twin brother. So the perspective that, I think it was Gary Zukav that wrote, I can't think of it right now, but Gary Zukav, he wrote a book that I just can't think of, but it was Gary on Oprah show, and he was basically like, you have to be grateful for the time you got with that soul. That soul did not come here to be next to you forever, and broke all these things down. And it took a minute to shift the perspective, but I did. And even after I healed for years, I had friends and different people who would say stuff to me like, you never really healed from when Story died. And in my trying to explain to them, nah, I did though, it would seem like I didn't care. It would seem like, and it's like, it's the same thing with mental health. How can the word healing and self-care and all these things be on the tip of everybody's tongue, so it seems, and then when you actually witness somebody going through a mental break or healing, you misinterpret it. And granted, you probably would, if we don't see it often, you would, but it's like, there's really no space for real. There is, but it's only if it's presented on our phones or on media in a way where it's like, listen to this story of how this person overcame all these things. But we're overcoming, every person that's going to listen to this, me, you, everybody, we're overcoming stuff on a day-to-day basis that's just as worthy of praise, of somebody just saying, hey, way to go, you got through that. Just to say, hey, Jen, you know what? 3 kids is a lot. You better go to fuck off. Like, and really acknowledging those things and giving people those acknowledgments. We don't give it to people. And I had a neighbor that recently killed himself in his apartment. And another neighbor of mine said, we hurt people, we watch them bleed, and then we say that they committed suicide. We watch them bleed out, and then we say they committed suicide. And I was just like, it was just a beautiful way of saying something I had been saying for a long time, which is people are hurting each other. And sometimes it's not as much as me saying, fuck you, bitch, I think XYZ, XYZ, here's all the names I could call you. Sometimes it's just in me invalidating either your healing or your real mental health concerns.
I agree 100%. You know what? And I appreciate the fact that you know, you were able to have a certain level of intelligence where you were able to apply that wisdom, because not everybody could get to that point. And I truly respect it and I admire it. And it's crazy because I was watching this is a while ago, but I don't know if you've seen I always talk about it, the cartoon Midnight Gospel. Oh, you gotta watch it. So there's a final episode and it talks about death. And it was crazy because when I saw it, I literally like went into tears, like watching it, because I had like a whole breakthrough inside of me that I never saw it in that way. I never saw the business side of it per se. And I remember even recently, me and my husband were talking and we were just saying how, what if we were taught about death differently when we were young? You know, would people, not to say that it doesn't hurt and you don't, you know, have this quick moment of, you know, I don't know if you want to call it suffering, but just this moment, right? Because everything is a moment when you have an experience in life, you know, whatever it is an experience. Good, you know, we can label good or bad, but it's really just an experience. You know, when we look at it like that in that neutral state, it's very different. And I always felt like I had the wrong like just perspective on death. And for a long time I was so afraid of the idea of death in itself. And then when I look back at, like, you know, your download stages that I always talk about from like 1 to 7 years old, I was like thrown death left and right, and just watch people, how they perceived it, how they reacted, that then I just took on those characteristics about death. And it's like, when you look at it in a different perspective of, like I said, these experiences, and we start to go into that state where you're looking at things more in the downstream as opposed to upstream, where we're seeing the heaviness. Yes, all that comes with it, but it's like, how do we transmute that afterwards? You know what I mean? And that comes with the words that we speak, with the people that are around us, and what are they saying, you know, because nobody knows how to handle this, because you weren't taught. It's like, okay, you get life, and then it's like, you just, you know, when someone dies, it's like, it's as if everything ends, but there's a beginning. There's never like an end to this,
right?
You know, it transmutes into these different forms, and we're not taught that way, so everything seems like the end.
So
And
check this out.
Go ahead.
My niece just recently lost her dad. And I was telling my sister, when my sister was, when I got married, I was 27. My sister's 5 years younger than me. So she was what, around 22, whatever the age is. And then like, so around the time she was like 23, around the time I was like 26, 27. So right after so my sister asked to pay for 11 plates at my wedding. And she invited 11 people. 4 of the people she invited were like 2 of her best friends and their boyfriend. One girl had just had a baby, DeMarco, and he was a little baby. And then the other girl, they were just boyfriend, girlfriend. Marky got killed a month after the wedding. He was shot in the head, mistaken identity. I had to explain to his 14-year-old brother, who had been in the car at the time, what a death rattle was, because he asked me why his brother's teeth were chattering after he got shot. And then after that, the other good girl had found out she was pregnant, and then the guy got killed leaving a stereo nightclub in New York City, Manhattan. And that was a month after Marky had got killed. So I just had this wedding, and then two people that were at the wedding got killed. Like, I got married in August. By January, we were in a state of having been funerals, and I watched my sister, be this rock for her two friends, and like literally one girl got treated bad at the funeral because I guess they didn't know she was pregnant, whatever. My sister, not really like the joke, but the comment I had made for years was that my sister didn't have a seat, but they had kind of sat the girl off to the side. It was fucked up, like where they had her sit, and my sister squatted like next to the chick the whole funeral, like with no seat and heels. Like that's why her knees don't work now. And but it was so real. But the thing was, we just, because death is an interesting thing, because we just called her baby daddy's cell phone yesterday, not this morning on her break on the porch. We just wanted to see what would happen. And there was a part of me that I'm not gonna front. I was like, she looked at me, she said, what if he picks up? And there was a part of me that knew he wouldn't, but hoped he would have. And I'm watching my niece. So my sister, I held my breath my whole life, because the more life showed me how life lives and how it works, I realized she had been prepped for a loss very early on. And with her baby daddy, I've just been my niece is 5. I've been holding my breath for 5 years, because I just felt like God will, it's going to give you, it prepped her for it. It prepped her for it. And now, I sat down the other day with my niece and went through watching a 5-year-old grieve, and I realized the responsibility we have in making sure the perspective she has surrounding death is so strong, that even though you're gonna grieve because that physical presence is gone, if you really have a faith and whatever the faith of the family is, for us, as he's fine, you go back to God. The body is, body's gonna die. Spirit can never be killed. That's physics. All these other things. And she really believes in that. And she talks about God and things in a way that I didn't have that at 5 years old. Right. So yeah, it's been powerful to hear her, because she'll say it so casually, like, my dad passed out. We'll meet new people and she'll just like, my dad passed out. And I'll be like, it's passed away, and we don't have to tell everybody we meet
right.
your father. Because then it creates these, where people are like, oh my God, and then they get awkward and I get awkward. And I'm just like, we don't even have to, she shouldn't have, like, it's fine.
You can avoid the whole situation.
She looked, my dad passed out. And I'm like, I have to clarify, because I don't want them to think my niece's father's at home just like, like passing out. So, but I will say, when I went down that rabbit hole looking for perspectives on death and I lost story, I knew that I would probably have to use, like, I just knew that whatever I gained, I would be able to pass on. So when Nipsey Hussle died, I don't know Lauren, so I don't want to, and some celebrities I do know, and I'm comfortable talking about them or whatever, because they're my friends, but I didn't know Lauren. She just started following me on Instagram, and we started talking in DMs on some regular shit way before he died. Mm. And when he died, I reached out to her and I asked her can I have your permission to make you a playlist? Because there's a perspective that I found when I lost my daughter that I think you might need right now, but I'm not well versed enough on it to articulate. Like, I'm not in a position. I haven't used it at that time. I hadn't used it. Now, when my niece's father passed and my friend Tamara passed away, I've had to lean on that and apply that wisdom. And sometimes it's hard. You want to be sad, but I'm like, you know what it is. You gotta, and each time it gets like, I'm really good with that. This is like new, so I'm like, I don't have the words for you, but I can make a playlist. And it took me 3 hours. I sat in front of YouTube. I Googled spiritual teachers that I was aware of, and I listened to videos, and I looked for someone who could articulate what I had found when the story passed. And the playlist, I can send it to, you guys, if you want to post it in the, it's free. There's no catch. It's just a playlist I made. The reason I say that, though, is because since then, there have been random people. Because Lauren London isn't random. but she wasn't in my day-to-day life. She's not one of the celebrities that I know good like that. But
Right.
behind the scenes, I sent her a lot of stuff. And when I hear her talk, and I'm not saying that I impacted any of that, but when I see that she went to spirit, if even one thing I said or one thing I sent her helped her get to that place, then I did what God wanted me to do with what happened to me, which was what I was saying earlier. You walk your walk and it helps others. So now, like, there's a comedian girl, I forget her name, but her brother passed away a while ago. There'll be random people like that, or just somebody that'll pop up on my Instagram that I don't even follow, and I'll see that they had a loss, and I'll just like slide in their DMs and be like, "Hey, God told me to send you this," and you can see how many people have viewed the playlist, and it was like at 600 and something one time, and I haven't sent it to 600 people, which means that people are sending it to people. And when my neighbor passed away, his really good friend, who's also my neighbor, kind of walked up to me. We're really close in my community, and was like, "Rodiah, that playlist you sent me was amazing. That guy with the hat, it was Moji. He was like, I had to cast it onto my big TV, and I had to sit down and like thank you so much." So, again, to anybody who's experiencing that loss, I think you sometimes got to give people permission that it's okay to heal, and that it doesn't mean that you're not hurt if you don't sit in sadness, and you're not honoring a spirit or soul that came into your life and then chose to leave earlier, or had it on its path. Because when Story passed away, there was a moment right after I gave birth where there was this presence in the room, and I thought that they had given me. I was crying hysterically, so they gave me something to like make me calm. Like they gave me something like pills to calm me down, so I was calm.
A sedative, probably.
Yeah, like a sedative. Yeah, and I thought I was like hallucinating, or I don't really take pills, so I thought that that was like the pills. But then I asked my husband about it probably like a year or two later, and he had felt the same thing. It was like almost, you could almost cut through it. Like it was thick. That's the best way I could describe it. And they put her little body in the like this little incubator thing, and then I pretended to be asleep when my husband went up so that he can have his moment, so that he can have his emotions and not be worried about being a man or whatever. I just pretended to be asleep. But there was this thing in there that was so thick, and so I think that if for any woman who's lost a baby, or is dealing with that, even if it was a long time ago, it's like I think people don't give women permission to heal, you know, and just say like it's okay if you heal, and it's okay if people look at that healing as you didn't care. You know what's in your heart, and I'm telling you, it's better to be healed than to be carrying something. You don't do your loved one any service by carrying that in a way that cripples you. You're supposed to take that and make you better,
It's funny that we're talking about, like all these emotions that we feel and death. Um, my children were asking me recently, like, how did I feel when my grandfather passed away? And like they don't know. I have a little story with my grandfather where he hit me one time when I was like a preteen or something like that. And I held a grudge for so long, literally till the day of his death. Like, and
Mm,
on his deathbed, my mom, like the best daughter in the world, she never let my grandfather go to a doctor's appointment by himself. She took all
mm,
her company days, like all her vacation days, to take him to doctor's appointments, to do what he needed to do, to make him food in the morning. My mom was perfect. And I saw my mom. So the only reason I helped my grandfather a little bit was because I knew I would be helping my mom truly. So
mm,
um in that moment, my mom asked my grandfather for forgiveness. And in my head, I'm like, why? Like, you did everything. Like, what else? So I was just like, let me just listen. And she was saying, like, if there was ever a time where you felt like I was angry at you, I'm not. She was like, everything you did was
mm,
perfect. Everything you did was exactly what I needed. And that inspired me to kind of, like you said, in a span of like 5 minutes, my whole perception of what was actually going on changed. Everything changed. And I realized that I was physically losing someone and I was gaining an ancestor. And when I realized that, I was like, why am I still carrying this? Right. So I do the same thing. I hold his hand, and I'm gonna be so honest with you. When everything happened, that he actually passed away, he was with me. I was the only person there with him. And so I had a moment where, like, I think God set it up for me to just express myself. And I said, like, I am so sorry that I didn't allow this relationship to get anything else. Like, I can't even believe that, because everything was just flashing, like all these years just flashing in front of me. So then I explained to my children, that that's how my grandfather passed away. So they had all these questions. And so one of the questions is like, where did he go? What happens? What happens to his body? Like, so many different things. So then I didn't even have to explain a lot, because what I explained to them, and it's kind of like what Jen is saying, if we change the way that we are looking at these things, the difference that can happen in just one generation is incredible. So I asked them, well, let me ask you something. Where were you before you got here? I've been living for 34 years, and you just happened to walk in 8 years ago. Where the heck have you been? And they're just like, their minds are like, hold on, wait, what? They're like, no, I've just always been here. And I'm like, no, you haven't. You have been always here for you, but for me, you just got here. So you must have came from somewhere else. Were you suffering? Were you happy? They're like, we have no idea. That's the same thing. You are in a journey, in a cycle. So when I start asking them things, I realize that they believe in reincarnation. They believe that they can come again. And then they believe that once they're done and they've completed what they need to do, they become one with the source. And that, to me, is like, when Jen was saying that, I didn't even realize that that's what we were doing, but we're retraining their brains to think of something that is like so scary and so, like, so much of a loss. It's like, no, wait, what is the spirit gaining? Most of us are suffering here. Most of us are going through things here because we're expanding. But this person must have expanded on another level to not be here anymore,
Right.
So that's a thing that I like to explain. Especially, I'm heavy on the Scorpio energy, and it's a lot of transmuting this energy from death to life, from death to life. And it's these cycles. I die every day. I die every day, and I'm reborn every day. So one of the things that we realize is like, yo, if we start analyzing all the things we go through in life, especially motherhood, and we start implementing these things, I was actually one of the first in my family. I'm the oldest from both sides, and I was the one that said I didn't want any children. I was the one that said I was going to be non-child for life. Like, it was embedded in me. But once I did have a child, again, that energy forced me to see the other way. And one of the things I realized is that you expand, and there is no life without expansion. So if you are a human that hasn't had any experience into motherhood, that doesn't mean you have to have a baby, but you've already conceived a child and it lived inside of you, no matter how tiny that was, or how tiny we think it is. It's a whole life, because it came with the wisdom. It came to force you to apply the knowledge that you've been learning. And so I think if we explain to other parents or parents to be that that's what the goal is, then you realize being a mother is the only way to get expanded enough to get to salvation, or get, one with the light, or whatever people explain, and not have to repeat a lot of the lessons that we keep repeating. you know? So if we break all those things down, like you said, just changing the perception of something is literally living another life to it. It's giving it a life rather than taking it away.
Can I just say I totally agree. And I watched, which is a weird movie to inject into the conversation, but the Barbie movie the other day. And there was this monologue in the movie at the end. I don't know if you've seen it, where she was like, women have to be this, but you can't be this, but you can't be this, but you can't be this. And it's just so real, like what they were saying, and what you were just saying made me think of that monologue, because the space that you've created to even just talk to mothers, I think is amazing that you guys are doing this. And Jen, there are people who for years, when people would wish me happy Mother's Day or certain things, I would get upset because I felt like I don't have a kid. And why do you go out of your way? Why are you thinking, whatever? But that experience of just the birth, because I gave birth, the being pregnant, how it interrupted, I threw up every day, how it interrupted my body, how it kind of took over, like this whole thing. Being able to experience that in the short term, not, producing where now I have to raise this little human and do all of that. Just that little experience that I had was a lot. So I always, my sister gets those text messages. I had my niece for 6 days. It was my first time one-on-one. Day 2, she got that long message like, yo, being a mom is a real job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I had to send her one of them, like, yeah, because it's like, come get your kid. Like, but like, but
My
even
bad, yo.
like, my bad, I wasn't there. Like what Jen said, my bad, I wasn't there. Like, but I do think that there's something special, and I think that there's not enough space for moms. Like, if you have a kid, I can't imagine even having a kid that's disabled or has like real behavior issues or the things, because do you ever get the chance as a mom to say, hey, this is hard, this is a lot, this is frustrating, this makes me angry, this is annoying, like, because I think, like, even because Amani's not mine, but I am there a lot and have been since she was born, like a lot, probably more than most aunts. And I just feel like there's this thing with moms where dads can kind of, not all dads, but we have a joke with my cousin's husband who went to the spa one time, and she was just livid because they got 5 kids. Like, you getting massages, like, you know what I mean? So I say that to say that there's just a thing in being moms in the space that you're creating, because I don't think women in general are able to really even just be. Meaning, if I'm too skinny, and then if somebody's whatever, she's too fat. You're too light skinned, but you're too dark skinned. And there's really, with women, it's literally, I saw something the other day and they were saying, I forgot what it was, but it was so contradictory to all of this like relationship talk that's online now. Oh, they said Remy Ma cheated on Papoose. Does true love still exist? And I thought, like, what are y'all talking about? Because all of this new narrative with relationships with men is like, in the Bible, men had this many wives and all these things, but they never talk about how the woman was supposed to be cared for, even if you choose to have that thing. And I just think there's a thing where the women who are left to raise the children aren't really being given the support, the grace, the room to be honest, the platforms, the spaces to speak, the podcast, whatever, to really talk about real feelings, not the painted over, glossed over, oh my God, such a blessing and a joy, because my niece is a whole lesson. I pray my life over her, but that's not a pitter patter little feet. She'd be full on stomping.
It's true. I think I feel like my husband had a hard time with my postpartum because of that, because he didn't understand it. And it was like, I had the 3 children back to back. So there was never I was either nursing or pregnant, like one or the other, for 5 years. And I feel like for a while, like I said, he was unconsciously not able to be there for me the way he wanted to, because he wanted to, he just didn't know how to. And I think he had to learn and even through my documentary and listening to other mothers and hearing these stories, after a while, he was like, yo, they all sound like you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all saying the same thing. And it's this thing because there's something about the energy of the mother. Like, I could be in the shower, you know, taking a nice hot shower, enjoying myself. My husband could be right next to the kids, like right next to them. But they will walk upstairs to my bathroom, knock on my shower to say, Mommy, can I get some juice? And I'm like, yo, there's a whole human that works.
It's not just me.
His name is your dad, and you were just sitting next to him. Why are you coming up here disrupting my time? But then you speak to other mothers, and it's like, yo, it's a common thing. And it doesn't mean that they're bad fathers.
No, it's an energy thing.
That. But, you know, and then it's like my daughters touch me when I tell you, like, everywhere and all the time. And it's like, not just touch me, they be like this. On my legs, on my arms.
They lay on me.
Do for everything, you know, and this overstimulating. After a while, what happened is you become empty at night, and then you have your husband there, like, wait, what about me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're like, yo, I don't mean to, like, you know, whatever, but I didn't know they were gonna like overstimulate
harass me all day.
And I would be touched out. Like, I would be completely touched out, you know. So it's like I had to learn also and have grace for him in his learning experience about this, because we were both learning this without no like education on this, like no parents to guide us and say, this is what happens, this is okay, whatever. It doesn't mean your wife doesn't want you, you know what I mean? Like it, so then it's like I've had to learn so much just as far as the male perspective, because we kind of dismiss it in parenthood a lot of times. But they go through their own postpartum journey as well. In like he would always say in the beginning, I feel like I lost my wife to the kids. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like it don't matter no more. And it's like, no, absolutely you matter. You're the foundation of this. I just have to know how to navigate this world now, where I'm still nurturing everybody, but remember, I'm the key nurturer. And sometimes it's a lot for me, yeah, because, you know, so it's like he's learning, okay, that now how do I nurture her as well? Because she's gonna need that as well. You know, it's not just her giving. There's gonna be a point where I should cook. I should be like, you know what? I'll put the kids to bed. I'll brush their teeth. I'll clean up. You chill out, you know? Because before I felt like there was this idea of just the mother doing everything and the dad just providing. And I don't think it works like that, because the dad also has to influence and raise these children. I feel like both parents should be in the home, because when both parents have the experience, it stops becoming a title thing of like, you're supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this. It becomes more of a unit, and it's like, all right, we got this new world, these three other humans. Now, how do we do this together so that nobody feels unappreciated, nobody feels over, you know, touched out, you know what I mean? Like, everybody gets their space. You want to step out? I'll be like, yep, I'm gonna go out to dinner by myself. I'm gonna go to the gym by myself. And those moments of that hour or two, I'm able to come back down. But if I'm up here and it's still there, I'm gonna fucking go crazy.
Yeah.
And
crazy. Sometimes in the night I'm sitting down and I'm just sitting there just like, what just happened today? Like, I didn't get none of the stuff I said I was gonna do. Like, was I even a good parent? Like, why did I yell? Like, why was there giggling bothering me? Like, and the whole of like processing the whole day, that my husband definitely doesn't understand, because he's just like, go to sleep. And I'm like, I wish I could, you know, but my mind is literally like trying to understand what just went down the whole day. Like when you say, like, my girls lay on me. Like if they catch me sitting, that's why I don't even sit. I don't sit in the daytime. I don't sit. I just be standing up doing stuff. Cause the second I sit down, it's like, oh, mom is sitting down. Like it's like they know. And when you were saying about the whole like emotional thing, I couldn't understand it. Like I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like I wanted to know what I was doing, that I am the designated person for everything. I needed to know and understand. Then, this whole perspective thing comes along, because I look at it as in like they're like quote unquote bothering me all day. But it's not what they're doing. They need stuff. They want stuff. They know they can get stuff. So they go to the person that gives them the stuff. Like, where else are they going to go? You know what I'm saying? So then I realized that I'm the emotional, like, they act different around me. They're more emotional around me. They can be free emotionally with me. And so now I see it as an honor. And now I understand that I'm the person that has to teach them how to deal with the emotions. So that means I can't be all emotional and crazy all the time and all this stuff. But it made me realize that it's not so much like, oh, this is the person and that they're doing it because of that, but because they understand that there's a different dynamic between people. They understand that with me, they can be free emotionally. When they're with their dad, they can be free physically. They jump, they do flips in places they know they're not supposed to. They run faster than they ever have, like around their dad. So I started like, recognizing that this is what's happening. And now I feel honored. Okay, I'm honored to be the person to teach you on how to guide your emotions. They can come in and out. This is what happens. Like you feel them, you process them, you let them go. If you hide it, I compare emotions to farts. I'm like, if you hide them, they're coming out another way and they're gonna be stinky. But it's true. We suppress so much and then we end up dealing with all these emotions after. So that whole thing of like when you're feeling like you're about to shut down, especially these first time moms that are just like understanding everything, don't shut down. Find people that you trust that are going to listen to you, that have good intentions, that love you, that want the best for you. Those are the people that you gather up together and you say, hey, can I vent a little bit? I don't feel well. And you just let it go onto people. I feel like certain people will be there for you. And if not, then great. You're letting yourself know the people that are not going to be there for you. And okay, off the list, on to the next, the perception has to change on absolutely everything.
Well,
I think something Jen said earlier made me really think, because you said, well, basically what it made me think is that like, so I'm in a position where I went through the experience, but there's no child at the end of the experience, right? But I went through that experience. I had a husband, and then I had a husband for years. Like that was like, and I always tell people that I feel like I had the relationship that when girls are dreaming about, like he supported me. I mean, literally, Leslie, I was treated great. And so I've asked him to do like some content pieces with me, because I felt like before I speak about love or anything, I felt like if people got to witness my ex-husband or husband on paper and I engaged, they would understand in just that one thing what Leslie and I are, what we were, etc. So this is not a bash on him. This is not a bash on men. This is not. But what I will say is my sister made a comment when I was going through my separation. She said, so I used to do music, like I said, and I bartended for years. And I worked regular 9-to-5 jobs, but like when I would quit the 9-to-5, bartending was always like my go back to thing. And because I would pay for my studio time, whatever. And my sister just made a comment one time in the middle of my separation. She was like, when you were a bartender who was smart, everything was okay. But the minute you took your intelligence and you started a business and you started to do all of that, I think it made him feel away. And I'm not saying in a jealousy way, but he was no longer the center of my world. And since we were 19 years old, everything had revolved around him. So even though I didn't have children and we didn't have children, like a lot of our friends early, in some way he was my child.
Right.
And that's kind of like a sentiment that I'm not going to like express the same sentiment, but Lauren had kind of said a sentiment to me. Like, it's almost like this is a kid because we came up together. This is like, yeah, it's my man. I love him. But this is almost like also like if the loss is like if it were a child of mine. And it was like my husband, there were things that, you know, he did for me. But if I just look from my perspective, things that I imparted on him in a way that was almost mothering. And I think the interesting thing with male-female relationships is that men are attracted, unless you have some kind of weird trauma, I shouldn't say weird, excuse me, unless you have some kind of trauma with your mother that makes you have weird relationships, like makes you weird in relationships with women, you know, for most part, I just feel like men are not spoiled, but it's like we were saying earlier when I was saying like, you know, so you have this girl. So this only really applies to people who've been together for a long time and since they were young. And I have a few homegirls like that. And I've watched them kind of go through the same things. And a few of my friends are no longer together. Like they separated behind my husband and I. One of them have other friends that are either divorced or they've separated. And with a lot of the situations, the woman had career goals and things that as she got older, and they were no longer a 19-year-old teenage couple, young married couple, honeymooners. Now there's kids involved, and then she has career goals and all these things. He's no longer being baby, or he's no longer. Is that it? So that's what you had kind of said earlier. So it's not a knock on G. You know, I fuck with G. What up, G? But it's so this is not a G thing. It's not a Leslie thing. My ex-husband. This is like a woman thing because men marry and pick. If I had to base it on the people I know, the men I know, whatever, that mothering care, you can get a man with that care, that taking care of, but then you end up caring for him so much that the minute you care for yourself, you're resented.
Yes, listen, you hit it right on the nail, because that was, I think, what we've had to work through in our marriage after having children, you know. And it was crazy because even like you say, they're gonna gravitate to something similar to their mom in a way, you know, and this mother sets that type of reality about a woman a certain way. And I remember there was a point where I was just burnt out from working, but I was working like 16, 18-hour days. And there came a point in my awakening where I was like, well, what am I doing, yo? Like I'm trying to cope with something. And I noticed that every time I go through something hard, I just work. And I'm like, this ain't making sense right now, because when I try to stop, something is happening to me inside my body and it don't feel right. So I've conditioned this body to react in this way in certain situations. So as postpartum got harder, I kept working more, thinking that would help me. So now my husband is watching this, but sees nothing wrong with it, because he watched his mom work from morning. Maybe we get up at 7 a.m., be home at midnight. Never complained, never said anything. But now he's able to see, wait a minute, I was looking like the complainer, like I can't handle this. But the truth is, that mother of yours was also going through that, but she wasn't going to show you that because you were a child. Just like my children ain't going to see that. But I'm showing it to you and you don't know how to receive it, because it's like, well, I watched so-and-so do it. And it's like, all right, but let's look at this. Is this normal? It's not, because your instinct is to be with them. Your instinct is to nurture them. And when you're caught up in this work and you're trying to do everything and be this quote unquote super mom, which I always think is the most ridiculous thing, it doesn't exist. That's just the stepping stone to a motherfucking mental institution at this point. You know what I'm saying? That reality. I'm like, yo, I ain't no super mom. Nigga, I get tapped the fuck out, work, children, all that, and I'm gonna have to it's not even about balance. I'm gonna have to change this reality that I created, because it doesn't fit in this world of mine. And to everybody else, you may have thought it fit, but it didn't. I think so many children suffer from just neglect from their I mean the parent was bad, but the parent was working so much just to survive. So when are these moms, like, I started realizing, no, I want to live. I do not want to keep surviving. I have been surviving my whole life. And I'm tired of living in this survival fight or flight mode, in like this subconscious fear that this is the way I have to be in order to provide, to do this. And I'm like, hold up, that shit don't make no sense. So as I became more vulnerable and open to it, it took him time to understand what I was saying. So he had to have his own awakening to be like, yo, this shit ain't cool. And I'm seeing why now, you know what I mean? Like, you're feeling these certain ways, why you're falling into these dark, you know, like places. You get what I'm saying? Because it's like everybody is just, you'll tell them like, yo, I ain't doing so good, yo. Like, I'm having a hard time. And then, you know, your friends in all good intentions will be like, you got this, girl. And they be like, no, I just told you I don't.
Right.
I just fucking told you that I'm going fucking crazy, bro. No, I don't. I'm trying to tell you, you're strong. No, I'm not right now. I'm not.
And I don't want to be.
And I don't want to be. I don't want to be strong. I don't want to got it. I want to tell you motherfuckers, I don't got it right now. I'm going fucking crazy. I got to do something to release this. But don't tell me. I don't want to hear that. Like, I don't want to hear, you got this. I just told you I don't right now. I don't feel good. This shit fucking sucks. I'm fucking going through it. I want to fucking scream. I want to fucking run away and never come back. I don't mean it, but I just need to say this shit. You know what I mean? I need y'all to just listen to this shit. So it's like I said, there was a point where he didn't understand that. To him, it was just like, what you don't want this family? What you don't want us? Like, no, it's not that. It's not that.
It's just total opposite, because I'm literally
opposite, yeah. But it's like I'm fighting the reality that society created, and the reality that
what I'm supposed to have,
what my spirit is wanting. And now it's like, how do I condition now myself to get out of this like paradigm and come into this new paradigm? Because everything is an addiction. I'm addicted to that life. I'm addicted to that survival mentality. That's how my body feels safe
and comfortable.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't want that to be my comfort, because it's a program, it's a conditioning. It doesn't make any sense to me. So now it's been therapy. He's in therapy. Like, we're both in our own individual therapy. And then even together through marriage counseling. Why? Because it comes a point where you have to realize, I can't do this by myself. I kind of need, especially us, we're the type of person that we get so into detail with the psyche of the mind, the body. So I need to understand what's happening on a psychological level, because that helps me then process it better. You know what I mean? Because then it becomes, wait a minute, I'm not crazy. What's happening is I'm putting my body under certain conditions that a chemical reaction happens, and this is the result of it. So now how do I control those chemical reactions? You know what I mean? So it's just been like just these different pathways, you know, and I feel like not every, as far as like, I don't feel every man can really take that path. There's been, I don't see a lot of men do it, you know? And I think that's why when people be like, oh, how come, you know, it's like after people have children, they can be together for years and then they break up after that. It's because they're expecting this old lifestyle. Like, he would always be like, oh, but when we were 23, I'm like, bro, I'm 40. I'm not the same. I've had 3 children. I've had experiences in life. I'm not saying that I'm going to be this like old lady type, whatever, but I'm going to grow into a different woman, and I want you to receive that woman. And the more open you're to receiving this new woman that is forming, because I'm even getting to know her. I'm re-falling in love with this person because I lost my old self and I kept fighting for that person. And then I had to let that person die, have a rebirth. And now I need you to go on your rebirth so you can receive this person. Because you're the 23-year-old asking the 40-year-old to go. I can't do that. I can't do it. I can't do it. So how do we, nobody's wrong, nobody's right. We're all based on our own conditioning, like I had a very emotionally, physically, and verbally abusive mother. He doesn't know that because his mother just worked a lot, but she was a great mom.
Right.
Wasn't there because she worked a lot. Like me, I had a very traumatic situation. Like if it wasn't for my dad, I probably even wouldn't be alive. You know what I mean? This was the only person with a conscious state that was able to take me away from that. But it's like this, I had to deal with that trauma that also he didn't understand because he didn't go through that. You can't, nobody's gonna understand unless you actually go through something. You're not gonna 100% get it. So it's not about getting it, but it's about having that understanding. Like this person's reality is different than mine, and whatever path they're gonna take to get the where they got to get to gain the knowledge, to gain the wisdom, I have to allow them to do that and just support them during that process, and then find your own understanding. So it's like I said, he's had his awakenings just in my awakenings in motherhood, and looking back at his mother, looking back at certain things like even now how she is, and even just if he's tried to, let's say, open up, she's very like she's suppressed. You know what I mean? And she keeps that suppression. So he's like, well, I don't want to stay like that. You know what I mean? Because me suppressing all that is why I couldn't understand you. So he's like, I don't want to suppress that. So it's like, all right, well, I can't talk to her, but at least now I have a better understanding of where she was as a mother, why she did certain things, why she reacted in certain ways, And that's the thing, is like, until we have these actual real conversations and stop putting the coat on top, you know what I mean? And again, it's not to knock the experience, but we're all going through a specific experience. And when we go through the journey of motherhood, whether we have the physical child afterwards to raise or not, we still had a motherhood experience. And that motherhood experience, I think, in all avenues, does something to us on a different level. And not everybody like you can transmute that to the way that you have. It takes a really certain type of wisdom and emotional intelligence and maturity within your soul to get to that place. Like I watch my family members for 20 years do this prayer service every year for my cousin. That was like one of our hardest tragic deaths that we had in the family. But what I witness is it's out of guilt. There's this idea that they're going to fix what happened in the physical in this way by doing that, and disconnecting from the actual source, like his children, or the way that you're supposed to find this, you know what I mean? This energy to keep going. So it's like with you, it's probably Amani, you know what I mean? It's like there's this energy that you were able to receive, and I want to thank you, because you're not the only person that went through this, but we'll say that you are one of the very few that has shifted your perspective and how you've applied it to your life. And it just says a lot about your purpose here, your purpose in the spirit diet. So it's like you've taken this one thing and you've been able to create like a world out of it, that allows people to be transparent, to be fearless, to be themselves, to not feel any guilt or shame, even in how you talk about your marriage. Like you were with him for a long time. And even when I see your post and how you break everything down, girl, I love it, because I totally get what you're saying. You get what I'm saying? Like I see the knowledge in it. I see the wisdom in it. And I'm like, oh, I love people that can do that, because in different aspects of my life, I'm still learning that. So it's like your energy, you know how you say, if there was one thing that Lauren took or whatever, it's like I think you're one of those people that deliver these messages to so many people that you probably don't even know how many people you've touched, but I guarantee you it was more than one message. It was more than one post.
Thank you.
Okay. It was more than it's your combined energy of what you were meant to do here. And I truly feel like you're living in that purpose, even with Amani, because I was told a horrible way about death. And it took me a long time till I was in my 20s to actually process this differently. And I had to do that by myself. What we're doing here is like, aunts are like the second moms. That's how I always see it, right? So it's like you still on that journey of motherhood, because you're also still you're basically still helping raise this child, and you're becoming an influence. You're able to mold this child in certain ways, like you're the reason why this child is plant-based. Like you've had a part in all these things, and all those things are of motherly nature.
Thank you.
Like you're living in that. So I want you to know that. And I'm gonna close this out right now, but I really, really appreciate you just coming on here, being transparent, telling your story. I know so many people have experienced this. They just don't know how to talk about it.
I want to thank you for having me. I'm grateful for the platform. I really feel like, again, if people have the opportunity to just be transparent about what they feel, you can, not even opportunity, but if you can go within yourself and just talk to yourself about how you really feel. And some of those feelings may, like society may look at them as, you shouldn't feel like that. But once you kind of get to that place where you can admit what you really feel, I think, I had to take what happened to me March 31st, 2014, and turn it into this whole thing that I did with the spirit diet, which, the inception date is her date, because that's the date where someone's putting me, like, because I didn't have gratitude on my tongue in face of such a blessing. I have to honor that spirit by still nurturing this business like I would have nurtured a baby. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to share the story. I hope it helps somebody, because it helped me, and healing is really possible. You don't have to carry grief, and that doesn't mean that you're not sad. It's a sad thing. But I think if I sat in a space, I don't have moments where I'm like, I wonder what my daughter would have looked like. Because I feel like even though you might wonder those things, you could put yourself in a state of just thinking the wrong way and thinking ways that don't support healing. And sometimes actual healing is going to look to other people like you don't care. You know what I mean? But you got to heal yourself, because you don't serve. I can't do my work with a spirit diet if I'm carrying stuff from losing a baby, if I'm carrying stuff from separating, from literally like literally had the marriage that people dream about. You know what I mean? Which is another podcast for a different day.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we gotta talk about that one day. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Every Mondays, Mommy Mondays, catch us, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you, everybody.
Be blessed.